Good afternoon. I will call to order the May 11th regular meeting of the Minneapolis City Planning Commission. I'm joined today by Commissioners Kronzer, Lupke-Peer, Gisselman, and Tucker. This time, please be sure any of your mobile devices are silenced. Our first item of business is to approve the actions from the April 27th, 2015 meeting. May I have a motion to approve those minutes? All right. Is there a second? All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. Our next item of business is to organize the agenda. We'll determine which items will be on the consent agenda, which items will be discussed, and if there are any to be continued. So we'll begin at the top of the agenda. Item number 1 is the DSL bed expansion at 726 2nd Street Northeast. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on that item? Seeing no one, we'll put item number 1 on the consent agenda. Item number 2 is a sign at 3121 Columbia Avenue Northeast. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on that item? Seeing no one, we'll put that item on consent. Item number 3 is the Northeast Art Custom Inc. Expansion of a nonconforming use at 38 27th Avenue Northeast. We will discuss that item. Item number 4 is the Carmel Plaza and Square at 2910 and 2936 Pillsbury Avenue South. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on that item? Seeing no one, we will put item number 4 on consent. Item number 5 is 1710, located at 1708 through 1714 West Lake Street. Conditional use permit and site plan review. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation? All right, we'll put item 5 on our items for discussion today. Item number 6 is the Huron and Essex Hotel at 501 Huron Boulevard and 2510 Essex Street Southeast. We'll discuss that item. Item number 7 is the North Loop Green planned unit development at 316 3rd Avenue North. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on that item? Seeing no one, we will put that item on consent. Item number 8 is L&H Station at 2225 East Lake Street. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on that item? Seeing no one, we will put that item on consent. So our items for discussion today will be items 3, 5, and 6. And then for our consent agenda, that will include items 1, 2, 4, and 7, and 8, excuse me. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Our next item is the Committee of the Whole consent agenda, and Commissioner Slack is not here, so I will give a report. At its April 30th meeting, the Committee of the Whole considered 4 land sales. The addresses are 3347 Fremont Avenue North, 3435 Humboldt Avenue North, 3514 Knox Avenue North, and 5217 6th Street North. Found that those sales are consistent with the comprehensive plan. The Committee of the Whole also considered a location and design review of an infrastructure reconstruction project at 24th Street and Snelling Avenue, and found that is consistent with the comprehensive plan. May I have a motion to approve those items, finding that they're consistent with the comprehensive plan? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Moving on. We'll move on to the public hearing portion of our meeting. First, I will open the public hearing for the consent agenda items. That is items 1, 2, 4, 7, and 8. Is there anyone who would like to speak on any of those items? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the the consent agenda? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. All right, and that motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our items for discussion. Item number 3 at 38 27th Avenue Northeast is our first item discussion, and Ms. Holeen is staff.
Good evening, Commissioners. The item before you is an application for an expansion of non-conforming use at 38 27th Avenue Northeast, specifically related to a sign on the property. The application is to allow a neon projecting sign that's approximately 13 square feet in area. Because this is a non-conforming use, it's a neon sign fabrication use, a light industrial use in the R2B district. The signage limitation is one flat, non-illuminated wall sign up to 16 square feet in area and 14 square feet in height. So the illumination on the sign and the fact that it's a projecting sign are not allowed, and the appropriate application, because it's a non-conforming use, is the expansion of non-conforming use. The subject sign I'll show you here briefly. So the sign that's the subject of the application is this sign here in the center. Here it is in a daytime shot. So the projecting sign here. The sign was installed without permits and was cited by zoning enforcement staff just over a year ago. Back on May 1st, 2014 is when the orders went out. Staff has reviewed the sign and found that it has no adverse offsite impacts, and it's really, the size of it is actually smaller than what would be allowed with the non-conforming use chapter. It's less than 16 square feet in area. The illumination doesn't really appear to have any offsite impacts beyond the property line. It is in scale with the building and fairly compatible with the surrounding area. We are recommending approval of that sign. There are 2 conditions of approval attached. One of them being that these other neon signs that you can see in the pictures here be removed. So because this is a neon sign fabrication use, all of those neon signs in the window are considered signage. And again, the limitation on signage is one flat, non-illuminated sign. So all of these window signs are subject to that condition of approval that those be removed. Because the signs are not allowed, removing that condition of approval would not allow the signs. However, the applicant has asked that that item be discussed, particularly as it relates to that condition. So on that, I can stand for questions.
All right, Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Holeen? If there are none, I will open the public hearing on this item, and I'd like to hear from the applicant first. And please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Myers. And our question regarding the neon signs in the window is more, we don't want to jeopardize the agreement based on the interpretation of the definition of signs or signage. One of the signs in that picture is no longer in the window, but in particular we had this sign, which is currently not illuminated. It's a neon Christmas Grinch from the movie The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. So when we had that illuminated in the window, it was as a holiday decoration. And as far as this sign here, which is commonly known as a Jolly Roger, it's the pirate skull. As far as a sign definition, it is not a notice bearing a name, direction, warning, or advertisement. So we just wanted to make sure that if we did have some items in the window that were not advertising our business or a product, that they would be able to remain in the window. And then the last sign that we're concerned about is this Grain Belt beer sign. That in fact is not a neon sign, it's an LED sign. We do not manufacture or sell any types of that particular sign at our business. We are a part of the Northeast Minneapolis Arts Association. We are a member of the Art World Tour, Open Studio, and the Grain Belt sign is, as a historic landmark, is a point of pride in Northeast Minneapolis. So we have it in our window more as an artwork of the neighborhood that we live in. And we would like to keep those in the window if possible. And I think that's it. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? All right, if there are none, we can move on. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, are there any other questions, or would someone like to start us off with a motion? Commissioner Lupke here.
Like, I don't have a motion. I just have a comment, I guess, for my fellow commissioners. Because normally I'm not a fan of sign clutter. But the weird thing about this is that if it was like a dress shop and they had dresses in the window, we wouldn't care because they sell dresses. This is a sign business, and then they have signs in the window. It's kind of like they're advertising their business. So I'm a little bit. This is perhaps the one time when there might be an exception to the rule. At the same time, I wish those curtains below weren't blocking views in and out of the shop, because it would make it a little more conducive to being pedestrian friendly, which of course is part of the reason we don't like sign clutter in the first place. The reasons given for the individual signs, I'm not sure I fully buy them, but in terms of what the fact that they are a business that sells neon signs, and they have neon signs in their windows that don't say neon art or whatever their business name is, it's kind of a compelling case to me. I don't know. I kind of curious how you guys are interpreting this, because to me it seems like the one exception to the rules is they actually sell neon signs. They make them and sell them. So I'm kind of hoping to hear some thoughts and get some clarity on that.
Commissioners, I think we acknowledge that there may be a little bit of a gray area, an issue of interpretation here. I guess if you were to eliminate condition number 1, that wouldn't necessarily mean that the signs get to stay. I guess if you were to eliminate that condition, it would be a matter that we'd have to work out with the zoning administrator and zoning enforcement staff to figure out the correct interpretation of the code on that.
All right. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? If there are none, would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Gisselman.
I will move approval of staff recommendation on this item, but with the caveat that we do remove condition 1, and I'm making that motion on the basis that I agree with Commissioner Lipke here that it seems maybe appropriate in this circumstance that we look for some sort of alternative to creating that requirement that there can't be any of the other neon signs in the window just under this circumstance.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, so we've removed condition number 1 from the staff recommendation. I would say that we would maybe encourage the applicant to work with staff on a resolution there. I think we still want to be concerned about making sure we're consistent, and we're not outright saying the signs can stay, but that the applicant can work with staff on a resolution there to that issue. Commissioner Lupke here.
Yeah, hi. I just also wanted to add it, maybe work with staff to address those curtains that are blocking the lower part of the window, because it seems like a give and take a little bit in terms of making it more pedestrian and friendly. If you're showing your wares, you should kind of be able to see in. So that's my only other caveat. That's part of that discussion.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Gisselman, did you have anything else? Okay. In that case, we have a motion and a second, so clerk, please call the roll.
Gagnon?
Aye.
Gisselman?
Aye.
Franzer?
Aye.
Lipke Pier?
Aye.
That's 4-0.
All right, thank you. And we can move on to our next item for discussion, which is item number 5, 1710, 1708 through 1714 West Lake Street. And staff again is Ms. Holeen.
I'm going to use the laptop on this one, or the computer on this one. There it is. Okay, it's up. She'll be back. The item before you is a slightly revised project at 1708 and 1714 Lake Street. This was before you a few months ago for a 4-story mixed-use building with ground floor commercial and parking enclosed on the ground floor. The majority of the building is exactly the same as what was before you previously. The only change here is that the penthouse unit on the 4th floor has increased by approximately 565 square feet, with the majority of that bulk on the north side of the building. And the location of the transformer on the 1st floor has also been relocated. So in terms of applications, the 2 applications required are the conditional use permit for increased height in the shoreline overlay district again. That's due to the fact that the increased bulk is above the height limit allowed in the shoreline overlay district, and we're also revisiting the site plan review application. So all of the other applications were approved at the March 16th, 2015 meeting, and there was a registered land survey approved back in February. So if you recall, I'll just flip through here quickly. Or not as quickly as I would like. With the increased bulk, because it's primarily on the north side of the building, the impact to shadowing has not changed, nor has the impact on the adjacent water bodies, with being Lake Calhoun and Lake of the Isles. The impacts to adjacent properties have not changed because those shadow studies really haven't changed. The relocation of the transformer on the ground floor, again, really no off-site impact there. That was primarily just due to a logistical issue presented by the applicant. So I will just be brief in my presentation unless you'd like me to go through the findings, because we've been through this one once before, and I can answer questions after. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Thank you. All right, well, we can open the public hearing on this item. Is there, well, if the applicant is here, I might ask them to speak briefly first about the changes since we last saw this.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Carol Lansing at Faegre Baker Daniels, here with Daniel Oberpriller of CPM Development and Scott England of DJR Architects. The changes were, as Kimberly described, primarily to slightly enlarge and reorient the penthouse into a really wonderful unit surrounding a little courtyard, but it still remains substantially set back on 3 sides from the rooftop of the 3rd floor. The west side is 4 feet set back from the building, and then there's another 7 feet separating it from the 5-story apartment building to the west. The height did not get any taller, and it remains within the land use guidance from the small area plan. So we also just wanted to make ourselves available for questions.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Thanks. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kim Dayton. I live at 3015 James Avenue South. The proposed building is within sight of my front porch. I have watched as the small area plan for Uptown has been ignored consistently. This is yet another building that is proposed, in this case, a 50-foot building proposed for a location that is currently zoned and recommended in the small area plan for a 2.5-story building. I looked at the staff report and how the issue of the height problem, because it is a problem. This building is taller than the Sons of Norway building, and the buildings to the west of the Sons of Norway building are supposed to go down as they approach the lake. And the rationalization for ignoring that aspect of the small area plan was that this would match or allow an upscaling of the buildings, or a downscaling of the buildings from the current 1800 building, which well exceeds the height limit for the small area plan. I wasn't at the hearing, and I probably should have been at the hearing where that variance was granted. There have been a number of proposals for properties directly across the street from me on James Avenue South, on the north southwest corner of the street, for 5-story buildings. It's well known in my building, in my neighborhood, that that development is going to be presented to this commission. Every time the planning commission approves a variance to the existing plan, it makes it much, much more difficult to justify disapproving variances in the future. We have zoning regulations. We have a small area plan that the city paid a lot of money for, that made very specific recommendations about the height of buildings in my neighborhood. I live in Uptown. I love living in Uptown. I love the commercial nature of it. I live there in a 3-generation household with my father-in-law, who's 85 years old, my son, who is 27 and disabled, and who lives with me and my spouse. And I don't like it when I see my neighborhood changing in a way that is inconsistent with the plan that the city approved. The developers of this property purchased it fully aware that there was a 2.5-story essentially restriction on buildings in that location. And now, after making investments that make it very difficult, I suppose, for this commission to reject their application, they ask for a variance. I wasn't at the hearing in which the building on the corner of James and Lake, which is my street, and another building that I can see from my property, was approved, exceeding the height limits. I'm not happy about that building. This one is taller than that building, and it's closer to the lake. So if the city really means what it says when it hires consultants to develop plans and issues its statements about what the Uptown neighborhood is supposed to look like, then I think it needs to reject this application for a variance. I really don't understand the pretty disturbing rationalization for building a taller building so that it can ease the transition to the shorter buildings to the west, to the east. I mean, it makes no sense to me that is a justification for ignoring the restriction that is based on the height of the Sons of Norway building. So I'm here to register my opposition. I will probably oppose this as long as I am able to, because I feel very strongly, not just about this building, but about the precedent that allowing this variance would set for future buildings, not just on the north side of Lake Street, but on the south side of Lake Street as well. So,
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, are there any questions, or would someone like to start us off with a motion? Commissioner Gisselman.
I just had a question for staff, actually, Kimberly. If you could just speak a little bit to the comments we just heard regarding the height and I guess the lack of consistency the height has with the small area plan.
Sorry, things got a little. I'll actually just put that portion of the staff report up here so you guys can read along with me. So in terms of consistency with the small area plan, we did find at a staff level that this was consistent with the small area plan. The Uptown Small Area Plan does have a lot of guidance for height. One of those policies being that the tallest buildings be located along corridors. Lake Street is a commercial corridor in this location, and the building actually appears at a height of 3 stories when you're looking at it from Lake Street. That 4th floor does step back significantly from the front wall of the building to allow that to kind of diminish from the street level and from the pedestrian view. It steps back 17 feet from the edge of the building. The small area plan also talks about stepping down toward the lake and being consistent with the height of other buildings in the area. So this is smaller or shorter than the building next door, which is actually 5 stories. And the buildings to the north of this, that front on Lagoon, which gives a lot of context also for the area, are primarily 3 stories, but they're a tall 3-story, kind of 3 stories plus the garden level. So Reed has about 3.5. You also have the Edgewater building, which is diagonally across the street, which is a 6-story building between this one and the lake. We also look at the shadowing impacts that this building would have on the nearby properties and on those open spaces on the lakes. And the shadowing impacts were really minimal for this building. I could go through in more detail than that if you'd like, but that's generally the guidance that we use to get to the recommendation that we did.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, any other questions? In that case, would someone like to start us off with a motion? Commissioner Kronzer.
Sure. Excuse me. I'd move a motion to approve the conditional use permit to increase the height of the building in the C1 district, and including the one condition staff has laid out.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on item A, the conditional use permit? If there is none, clerk, please call the roll.
Gagnon,
Aye.
Disselman,
Aye.
Kranzer,
Aye.
Lipke-Peer.
Aye.
That's 4-0.
I
Commissioner Kronzer.
propose a motion to approve the site plan review with the 5 stated conditions.
Second.
All right, any further discussion on the site plan? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Lipke-Peer.
Aye.
Kranzer.
Aye.
Disselman,
Aye.
Gagnon,
Aye.
4-0.
All right, and that motion carries. So we can move on to our next item for discussion, which is item number 6, a hotel at 501 Huron Boulevard and 2510 Essex Street Southeast. Mr. Hanauer is staff.
Right. Chair Brown and Commissioners, the focus of my presentation will be for the hotel project at 501 Huron is on one condition of approval for application C, that being the setback variance application for the porte cochere as it relates to the rooftop deck. CPED is supportive of all 6 applications for the proposed hotel project with conditions, and the development team is okay with all the conditions of approval except that one condition that relates to the active portion of the rooftop deck nearest the apartment building to the south. The staff recommendation is that this rooftop deck portion be set back 20 feet from the property line. What the applicant showed in the version that you have in front of you is 4 feet from that shared property line, and there's new information that I'll go over in a minute or two. CPED in that condition of approval referenced section 550-210, the enclosed building standards for having the rooftop deck set back 20 feet. And this section states that outdoor dining shall be allowed provided that it is no closer than 20 feet from an adjacent residential district boundary or from an adjacent ground floor permitted or conditional residential use. And in your addendum packet, you'll see that the applicant states that the rooftop deck will be used in conjunction with the pre-function space for events in a ballroom, for drinks, and will not be furnished for outdoor dining. CPED recognizes that there is some gray area under flexibility in the reviewing of the space as outdoor dining in terms of 550-210, since it is not specifically for outdoor dining, and will likely not have that same regularity as a restaurant use that would have that outdoor dining. And then the intent, as you're likely aware of that setback requirement, is to minimize the conflict among the land uses, providing adequate open space and separation. All right. So for the neighboring apartment building as mentioned, that blue line is showing it's 10 feet from that shared property line, whereas you have this one small portion that is set back 3 feet. There's a small portion of the building that has an active use that's set back 3 feet, that being that porch or that balcony that you see there. As you go to the east or back, that green portion is a one-story podium for parking, so an inactive use behind that deck area on the second floor. Now, with the information, actually, you even have a newer version. I have a newer version here of what the applicant is proposing to help mitigate this impact on the neighboring property. Top portion is what you have, having a deck 4 feet from that shared property line. The applicant is proposing to move that porte cochere and that rooftop deck back 14 feet, reduce the size from 750 square feet to 710 square feet, and then the active rooftop deck would be 10 feet from that shared property line. We feel that this will likely have a less direct impact for the neighboring apartment building, as it'll be shifted back. It won't have that direct view, and it'll be mainly next to that parking garage. But staff's recommendation, as it was published, it still stands in that we have that 4-foot setback. However, as outlined just a minute ago, the changes that came after the publication of the report, we feel that if the Planning Commission views differently the ordinance interpretation of outdoor dining for a reception hall, or with the applicant's changes to help mitigate the impact of the active space being next to a residential building, we wanted to highlight that and be here to answer questions that you may have in coming to this conclusion. I'll also point out in the addendum packet that there's one letter of support from the Prospect Park Neighborhood Association. So I'm happy to answer questions you may have.
All right, thanks. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Hanover? Commissioner Kronzer.
Aaron, there looks to be some kind of screening material between the property line and the railing.
Correct. Both in both the version that was submitted in the staff report, that top portion, and the back one, the applicant is proposing to have plantings that will, I'd like to have the applicant have specifics or describe the specifics of that proposed planting, but they are willing to do that to help mitigate the impact of the outdoor area.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing for this item, and I'd like to ask the applicant to speak first. Please state your name and address for the record. If you could focus your comments on the issues related to the rooftop deck.
Right, and I think Aaron's actually done an excellent job of doing a comparison of what we had originally proposed to what we proposed as a compromise choice here. And we're available to answer questions. I just want to be clear that this is primarily a space to be used during the maybe 5-6 months of the year that the climate is suitable as an extension of the pre-function space with events relating to the ballroom. We have a bunch of outdoor dining space and things on the first level of the building that we think will accommodate most of the general use. As an extension of that, though, we really do feel like to do the setback 20 feet would make the space roughly half of what we were originally proposing. So thus the idea of moving it over and sticking it back 10 feet would be a reasonable compromise and would still result in a usable outdoor space for guests attending these events. To answer your question about the landscaping, we're looking at large pots with plants and flowers and shrubs that would be seasonal in nature, because this is only something that would be used during the nice part of the year. If there's any other questions, we're certainly here to answer. Sure.
So how tall are these plantings?
I'm guessing they'd be, maybe we have a railing that's 42 inches, guardrail, so it'd probably be maybe about that high or something. It's not intending to be a.
Do you think you could get something taller?
We probably could.
Because having these things in close proximity, it's almost you want to be as tall as a person, so if someone is out there standing, you kind of have a.
So larger pots with some plantings on top of that.
Yeah.
There are none. We can move on. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, would someone like to start us off with a motion?
I'll start this off. Recommend approval for the conditional use permit. Increase the height in the C1 neighborhood, commercial district, and the shoreland overlay district with the one stated condition.
Is there a second? All right, we have a motion and a second on item A, the conditional use permit for height. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Tucker,
Aye.
Lipke Pier,
Aye.
Cronzer,
Aye.
Gisselman,
Aye.
Gagnon,
Aye.
5-0.
All right, and we have 4 variances and a site plan review. Would
Yes,
someone
so
like
just
to
trying to capture where this porte cochere setback is. Is it
the porte
site
cochere
plan?
setback is addressed in the condition on variance, on item C, the
Item
variance
C.
related to the south interior setback.
Got it. Okay. So I will move variances B, C, D, and E with the modification to the condition on variance C for the south interior side yard setback to adjust that to be a 10-foot setback. And then also add after the period and work with staff to create taller vegetative screening seasonally.
All right, is Mr. Wittenberg?
Commissioners, if I could just recommend that as part of that amendment that you just strike the per 550.210 and just start the sentence with the active portion.
I think that's a fine idea.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on variances B, C, D, and E. Further discussion on those items? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Gisselman,
Aye.
Cronzer,
Aye.
Lipke Pier,
Aye.
Tucker,
Aye.
5-0.
All right, and our last item is item F, the site
Rec-
plan review.
Recommend approval of the site plan review with the 7 stated conditions.
Second.
All right, any further discussion on the site plan review? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Gagnon,
Aye.
Gisselman,
Aye.
Cronzer,
Aye.
Lipke Pier,
Aye.
Tucker,
Aye.
5-0.
All right, and that motion carries. That concludes our meeting for today. We have a committee of the whole meeting this Thursday at 4:30. And our next regular planning commission meeting is June 1st. I will adjourn the meeting.